Hello everyone, welcome to my garage. Something a little different, right? Yeah, this isn't my rig, it's not a racing video. This is the beginning of a build video. I recently ordered the Derek Speare Designs, the DSD Chassis. So I think I'm one of the very first like 50, 60, 100 people or so in the country to have tried it out, and I'm excited about it. It's made of MDF, which if you're not familiar is a manufactured wood, a composite wood. And I have not opened the box yet. I'm about to show that to you. But real quickly to talk about why I'm doing this, I've had a pretty comfortable rig for some time, but I've been wanting to do stuff to it. And I got really antsy a couple of months ago. And so I was stuck in a situation where I was either going to buy something completely prefabricated like an Unbox, or I was going to build an all-new 80/20 frame to where I could separate whatever monitor mounting situation that I had from the seat chassis part, or whatever, right? So I was kind of going back to square one, wanting to build with the materials that I already had and sort of augment them, or start with something totally prefabbed. I ended up going with a different route. It was a pretty inexpensive route, and that was with Derek Speare Designs. So we're going to start this. Look, first off, the reason I'm making this video kind of has, I want to try to help Derek out a little bit. He doesn't have a lot of materials out there for someone who may be considering this what I expect to be a really good piece. I've got a button box of Derek. I know that Derek's got a stellar reputation within the sim racing community, and I have an appreciation for what he does for the community, and that's one of the reasons that I ended up purchasing his system here. But I wanted to put something out there to where anyone else who was considering this purchase would know what to expect, and at least my process for hopefully putting it together well and making it look good. You know, raw MDF is like wood, right? So it's not very pretty to look at. So over the next day or two, I'm going to be documenting my efforts, not as a woodworker, to sort of prepare, unbox, prepare, and then assemble this rig. So I'm pretty stoked about it. I'm going to be hopefully doing a reasonable edit on this video. It's definitely outside of my normal skill set, the range of things that I normally do. So I'm going to move the camera around a bit, probably use some time lapse, and answer any questions you guys might have in the comments below. So thanks so much. All right, so you can see here the packaging that this came in. It's basically straps, and it looks like it's overbox. So the outside layer here, I think this came FedEx if I remember right. The outside layer here, it's pretty beat up, but I think this is overbox, and so what's underneath should be okay. I'll find out in a moment. So you can see here that Derek has taken Derek has taken basically a loop of cardboard here and wrapped it around the length of all the parts. And oh, and he has a side piece here too. So yeah, this is pretty well protected. I'm pretty happy with this shipping. Everything looks like it's okay. I don't see any damage to parts on early inspection here, so I think we're okay on the shipping front. Nice little bag of hardware here. Looks like we got an itemized parts list for this bag, so that's good. Oh, and the bags themselves are numbered. That's going to help with understanding what hardware goes where. So that's good, Derek. I like that. That reminds me of something I saw in Unbox when I was looking at them. So it's smart. All right, so one of the things I liked about this that made me go this route was, you'll notice, I don't know which part this is, but you'll notice all of the holes are already pre-drilled. I think this might be the wheel deck. So all the holes are already pre-drilled for most of the popular stuff. So I won't have to do any measuring and cutting to match my pedals or my wheel or really any of that stuff. So at least I hope I don't. But there's a lot of holes already cut into this bad boy that will allow for me to use my equipment without having to modify things a whole lot. I'm excited about that. As you can see, Derek's done a pretty good job of wrapping all of these individually in plastic, or at least by part in plastic. I mean, these are two identical parts that I think are the two sides of the of like where the chair platform is going to be. Remind me to show you the chair later. Not a big deal, but it's worth pointing out. It looks like the wrapping came out during shipping on this piece, and you can see, I think you should be able to see here that there's been some slight damage done to these pieces on the edge where they've been tossed around in shipping. In the end, that's not going to matter. This is I think that's the bottom of the very front, so if nothing else, I think that's the part that's actually going to be impacting the floor. So I don't think it's a big deal, but when it comes to boxing, a little feedback for Derek, I think some a layer of styrofoam around the outside would have been a welcome improvement to the shipping, but this looks, it all looks pretty good. Okay, so this is a quick look at all of the stuff that comes with your Derek Speare Design chassis. Now, I should point out, I don't think I said earlier, this is the drive version, the racing version only, not the one with the flight side pods on it. So if you go that route, which I really came close to doing, but if you go that route, you will have more pieces. So all of that, plus a bag full of parts to put it together. Alright, just a quick look at some Craftsmanship stuff here. Just to kind of give you an idea as to the quality, the overall build quality and cut quality. I am not an expert on MDF. I've never worked with it before. I've done a little bit of woodworking in my life, but not a ton. I think it's going to be key before I put any kind of finishing on this that I go over all these pieces with a sander, probably 800 grit sandpaper, maybe 400, and just smooth it out here and there before I put paint on it. There are some spots around the cuts that I think could use a little love. The worst one that I've seen thus far, if you look into the grooves here of the DSD logos, it might not be coming through very well there, but there's some cut debris, some sawdust still in there. And then on this side panel, I haven't looked at the other one yet, but on this side panel you can see that that's pretty rough around the D, the S, and the D. So I'm going to be hitting that stuff with sandpaper and then vinyl sealer and then paint before I start assembly. Now, if you don't intend to do that kind of work, right, if you just want to get it up and running and don't mind it being just this sort of bland raw MDF, then obviously you don't need to worry about that stuff. I'm gonna dress it up a little bit though. I'm hoping I don't suck at it, but I'm gonna dress it up a little bit. So just came across a nice little touch here. I believe this is the shifter support. So I have a Thrustmaster TH8A, and I'm not sure exactly what the orientation of this is going to be, but it's going to hang off the side of the rig, perhaps like this, and be anchored like that. But one of the things that I really liked about this was that it had these recessed nut plates already in here, and I think that's really going to help with overall stability. And it's a nice touch, a good little bit of quality to have those pressed in beforehand. Just worth pointing out that several other places, these I believe are the side supports for the seat. There's two of them. The seat would sit across the top like this, but just wanted to point out that more of these recessed nut plates are present, so looks like that's a pretty well thought out thing. And then another thing that I kind of like that's going on here is Derek has helpfully marked a lot of the pieces as right and left. Here's an example of right and left being marked on this one, inside and outside being marked on these. So anyway, I've got some black spray paint, some red spray paint, and some vinyl sealer coming soon. So hopefully I can tomorrow, when that arrives, get this painted up, and then on Sunday do the build portion of this. Let's take a quick moment and look over the contents of our bag here. I won't open up the screw bags themselves. Pretty simple, no graphical directions, but you can see here that he breaks down what the bags are for. So as long as you can figure out what his terminology is as far as subframe, I think my past of working on jets should help me figure it out. I can imagine how the terminology, though, a little feedback for Derek, I think it would be good to have a diagram of the rig itself sort of exploded, with those parts labeled, right? Some folks might not know what an hourglass support is. They might not intuit what an hourglass is, as opposed to you know, having a picture of it or numbering these pieces in such a way that they're unmistakable. And I think an exploded diagram would be a good way of going about that, if I could just make the recommendation. But this is all pretty well thought out. I mean, the numbering will really help as I start putting things together when I get to that point. I'm going to have to figure out how to best designate inside and outside once I'm you know, to the painting phase, because those existing markings are going to be obscured. So I'm excited about it. Derek, thanks for putting together something cool. I'm hoping that that we're going to be able to be a positive reviewer and advocate for this product. I think it's going to be pretty cool. Thanks. All right, so we're back at it again. I'm about to reorient the camera here so that we can start working on basically doing some sanding, some prep work. Again, I want to preface that I'm not a woodworker. I just want to give anyone who's considering purchasing this rig an opportunity to know what's in store for them as far as prepping it if they intend to do any finishing or painting. So I've got some 400 grit sandpaper here and just a manual handheld sanding block. I'm not going to be using any power tools for this. There's just not that much stuff. I'm just going to do my best to prep it. And then behind me, I'm going to hang these pieces as I'm done using some picture wire. And with that picture wire, I'm just going to hang them and use that for spraying on this vinyl sealer, followed by some Rust-Oleum spray paint. The vinyl sealer I found watching a dude on YouTube talking about how to paint MDF. It's called Balin Vinyl Sealer Aerosol Sealant. There's the tag. It was something like $10 or $12 per can. I went ahead and got two, not knowing kind of how liberal I would need to be with these things. So we'll see. I don't know what I'm doing, but we're gonna try to do whatever we're doing well. So I'm gonna reorient the camera here so that it's facing downward toward my workbench, and once that's done, we will start getting to work. Huh. The sandpaper I'm going to use today is this faster sanding 400 grit that I picked up at Home Depot for a couple bucks.
I've been held up in this city for a while due to the rain. I hope that the rain will never stop.
back there, you might be able to see that I have the pieces that I've sanded so far just hanging from the garage door frame. I'm going to move my wife's car real quickly here, and I'm going to do my first round of epoxy while I continue to sand the rest of this stuff. Sort of figuring it out as I go. Sorry, I'm not even in frame there. Sort of figuring it out as I go, of course, as you know. And anyway, so we're going to go try this. Hopefully it doesn't start raining. I don't know what moisture in the air is going to do to these things as they try to dry, but we've been having a lot of rain out here. One thing I am going to do is wear a breather mask. I've never worked with this stuff before, but if it's anything like epoxy sealant, then I want to make sure that I ninja up here, because if it's anything like that stuff, it's kind of nasty. So anyway, I'm gonna go move the wife's car and then we'll get this done. Okay, I think I did that well. We're gonna sand some more, and yeah, we're gonna sand some more as those continue to dry, and then I'll put the first coat of spray paint on those after I've done some more sanding, assuming that those are nice and dry. That MDF absorbs really quickly, so I don't know yet. I don't really know yet what to expect here, so that's why I'm doing it with those little cross braces first. They're aesthetically the least exposed parts of the rig, so that's my method, hopefully. All right, I've relocated myself over to the side of the garage so that I can hopefully show you the painting of these pieces. Not that that'll be terribly interesting. I'm starting to wonder if any of this video is going to be interesting, but I've got these guys hanging behind me here on picture hanging wire, and I'm just going to try to get them with black paint, see how it looks, and get this centered up, I guess, about like that. All right. All right, so I don't have a great way of showing you this, but I'll probably pick the camera up and walk around and show off a little bit here. But from a distance, I think they look okay. We'll see how they do when they dry. There's one piece over here, the one closest to the back of my car, that that I think I got a little too heavy-handed on. So not sure exactly where that's going to end up in the finished product. So I don't know if I really care about it yet. What I'll end up doing once I lay the pieces out, because after I've got everything painted up, I'm going to lay the pieces out, and if it looks like it's one that's well concealed, I just won't worry about it. If it's one that's going to be pretty exposed, then I'll end up probably sanding it and giving it another coat. But I might need to give all of these another coat. I don't know yet. So I'm going to let them hang and dry while I go sand some more pieces. Meantime, I'll move the computer over there and give you guys a quick tour of what they look like painted.
I've been held up in this city for a while due to the rain. I hope that the rain will never stop.
Okay, so the audio for this portion is going to suck. Just wanted to kind of show you what I've got here before I move things around and close the garage doors. I have finished painting all of the pieces. They're various black and red. They are hanging and drying, and there might be a little double two coating happen later on. Get that fly off of there. That's right, I'm waving it with the camera. I left some spots kind of purposefully not painted, like for example here, that are, you may not be able to see it with the lighting. The sun's going down, it's overcast here, so anyway, I wanted to leave some left and right indications available. I will say that I exactly correctly guessed the amount of sealer and paint that I would need. In that I have 2 cans of each, 2 cans of black, 2 cans of red, 2 cans of that vinyl sealer, and that ended up working really, really well. So all 6 of those cans are low now. So as you can see here, got pretty good coverage, pretty consistent. It actually painted up, I think, pretty nice. The red nicer than the black. So I think maybe a lesson that I'm taking away from this is that brighter colors look better on MDF than darker colors. You see over here I've got some that I already took down, and some of the first ones that I painted are sitting here. I've got a bit of a drip on that one that I'll probably sand off and repaint, but I'll just wait for it to dry, and I'll do that stuff in the morning. Alright, so the next thing is to assemble it, and that's tomorrow's project. I'm going to assemble it, put this bad boy together. One of the things that I'm hoping to figure out is whether or not some of these pedals that I have, I've been using some old CSL Elites that I got originally, but I'm going to see if these work. A buddy of mine gave me 2 sort of parted out sets of original Club Sports, and I'm going to see if those work. And if they do, I'm going to switch over to them, because he gave me a pretty sweet kit for them. I've got a parts bag that's never ending, and I've just never messed with it. So I'm going to see if maybe that works, and maybe upgrade some equipment. I know that the clutch is way better on the Club Sports than on my CSL Elites. So anyway, hard work, man. I gotta say, I'm sweating out in the garage. It's a humid day, and it's been some work, but I think it's going to be pretty rewarding once it's all done. So thanks for watching. Okay, everybody, here's where we're at. As you've seen, I've done some detail work. I've painted the entire rig, let it dry overnight. It was hanging in my garage, and it looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the way the paint turned out on the MDF. I do think the vinyl sealer made a big difference. So please seal either a vinyl or an epoxy sealant before you paint. Another point of recommendation would be brighter colors. Mind Trick Motorsports, my team, its predominant colors tend to be black and red. It's what most of our racing liveries are. I like that color combination, always have. And so I went with those colors here, as you've seen. And I feel like the long-term effect that the black doesn't look quite as good as the red. And maybe it's just this shade of red that I ended up going with, gloss apple red, but it looks great. The black looks okay. And maybe another hit or two of another coat or two of the sealer would have made it better. I don't know, but I'm really happy with the way the red came out. You saw the detail work that I was doing on the DSD logos. That came out okay, better on the right side than on the left. I made a couple mistakes on the left that I still need to patch up, but I don't think that's going to stop me from getting started on the assembly. To that end, a buddy of mine, one of the Mind Trick Motorsports team members, you've heard his voice on a lot of the endurance races. His name's Jake Homecamp. He lives here in Oklahoma City as well, and we'll be dropping by a little bit later today. So the assembly video will be a two-man job. In the meantime, I'm probably going to move on to pedals and start thinking about whether I want to take this opportunity to switch over to the Club Sports or stay with my CSL Elites. To do that, I'm just going to take these sets inside and plug them into my rig. And just see if they're recognized properly and if they work properly and all that stuff. I don't care about driving with them right now. I just want to see if they function. And if they do, I'm going to mount one of those and try to make that transition, because I know that my clutch, I hate the feel of the clutch on the CS Elites. I really want to have a better clutch, and I know that this one's a better one. The question's going to be one of the brakes. I don't know how good that's always been sort of the weak spot that I've heard about on the Club Sports. So all that said, having fun. I really like doing this kind of stuff. I don't do enough handyman stuff around the house. And so this is I like this rig design from a creativity standpoint, just because with the Obutos or with a Rensport or whatever, you're locked into the design that they started with, right? This material, kind of like 80-20, maybe not as modular as 80-20, of course, but kind of like 80-20. This stuff allows me to be creative with color choices and with mounting points and so on, and in a way that a commercial rig wouldn't allow. So let me pan the camera down here and show you what we've got going on to give you an idea of the scale of the build. Let's see if maybe that color will correct itself. I'm going to try to do something about the light. All right, there we go. That's a lot better. So as you can see, I've got things kind of laid out. I need to go back and rewatch Derek's installation slideshow on YouTube. I can put a link to that down below for anyone who might be following along with my stuff. Yeah, you can sort of see the color choices, how they've worked out there, where the subframe is going to be all black, and then basically mounting points where the seat's going to mount, and the you know what, I should get the seat out, but where the seat's going to mount, where the shifter, the pedals, the wheel deck, all that stuff is red. I'm going to grab the seat and put it in frame as well. Okay, so that is a Summit racing seat. Derek actually recommended that specific one. I didn't have any reason to do anything different. I live in Oklahoma City. Summit has a distribution point in Dallas, and so this thing was a one-day shipping. I've had the seat I've had the seat for over a month, and I've been waiting on the rig for that long. So I'm really excited to have everything together here. This is going to be fun. All right, rear seat deck subframe. So my boy Jake in here. What's up, Jake? So anyway, we got this thing painted up, and we are starting assembly now. We're going to start with the seat deck and the rear subframe. It's bag number 4 of hardware, and basically you have a left side and right side support, and then the actual deck that the seat's going to bolt to. So we're going to put that together first. Phone call. Okay, so according to my man Jake here, who's put seats into race cars and then crashed race cars and survived the crashes, so he should know things about seats. We've got the seat oriented as you see it here, sort of facing downward, and then we're going to, he's got the rails fully extended to the back as much as possible, so we'll seat the back first, then move the rails, then seat the front ones. And we're using M6 by 1 hex head. Oh, I'm sorry, M6 by 1.5 by 45, we think they are, bolts that did not come, I should point out, did not come with the seat or with the rig, so we had to pick up hardware separately for this. What do you need?
Let's see which ways it goes on. I believe it's these two.
Now this is using the seat that's recommended by Derek. Let me show you what holes are being utilized here. It's the 4 outermost on the seat deck there. All right, so using the lessons from the rear subframe, we're going to apply those to the front subframe. We're now on bag number 1, which is a bunch more wood screws. We are going to be doing the front rails here, and they have these hourglass cross braces just like the rear did. So we're going to seat one side entirely first and then move on to the second side. All right, so there's one black brace that has no markings on it. It is not the hourglass shape. We've determined that that's the one that goes in the very front of the front subframe facing downward. On my example, for whatever reason, there are only holes started on one side. So we're gonna go ahead and start on that side and then we'll create holes in the other. Just being careful to hold it flush. Okay. That's our front subframe. All right, when you get to this part, you've got long bolt, washer on the bolt side, washer on the nut side, then nut. All right, so we had a moment of confusion here as it relates to getting the side panel on, and basically it just has to do with the way the wing nuts are set in place. So you'll get, yeah, it's mocked up on one side, so we'll show you that first. And then what you'll see here is you have one thumb screw that is all one piece, and then another one that is the receiving end, right? So on the front piece, you'll actually on the front piece you'll run through the from the outside using the wing nut, right? That's the single piece. On the rearward one, there's a bolt that goes through from the inside and then to a thumb screw on the outside. So put together, this is what it looks like. So here you have a one piece on the rear. It looks the same from the outside, but in reality there's a bolt going through, nothing protruding in the front. Okay, update. I'm going to turn the camera around here and show it to you put together. We've had some challenges with MDF as the material of choice here. It isn't very rigid. And also adjustability. I got to say, I'm a little over 6'1", and as far as adjustability goes, I'm struggling to find a good equilibrium between the distance of the pedals and the distance of the wheel. And I've got a Thrustmaster T300 RS. So let me show you what we got. See the way the wheel mounts, this particular wheel, is it mounts up to the front. It sort of hangs over the front of the wheel deck. And since there isn't front to back adjustment on the wheel deck, that kind of leaves the wheel really close to the driver. So I'm sure I'll get used to it as far as the position of my seat on the sliders. But yeah, it just feels really close. And the reason being is because it's sort of connected to the distance for the pedals. So you can see here that I've got the pedals as close as I can, or excuse me, at the right distance, but the wheel deck as far away as possible. And it ends up, I don't know, just not quite right. So still working out some kinks. I'm opting to not use, I think, the mount for the shifter that would normally go right here. I've attached it and now detached it because it just didn't feel steady enough in place, and I've got an 80-20 situation inside that you'll see in a moment that I feel like it's going to just do a better job without me having to change that around. So all said, I mean, it's definitely easier to get in and out of than my Playseat Challenge, which you see sitting over there stripped bare with sexy Jake Hohenkamp hanging out by it. So this looks okay and all that. I don't know that it's ever going to last more than a couple years with the MDF material. It's not rigid and not strong enough, and I'm just worried about its long-term durability. So we'll get in the house and I'll update it from there. So it's been a few days since we finished building the chassis and got it into the house. I wanted to wait to do this part of the video so that I could give a fair and honest assessment of what I think. When we got done, I'll admit that I was a bit disappointed. The lack of diagram-based instructions forced Jake and I down a couple of bad paths. The geometry of where the pedals and wheel end up weren't agreeing with me, and we'd had a couple of issues with MDF as a material. So when we were done, I wasn't as excited as I thought I'd be. I was a bit disappointed. But over the last few days, I've tweaked this and that to make it work better for me. So let's go through the good and the bad. First, for reference, I'm a little over 6 feet 1 inch tall and weigh about 230 pounds. So I'm not an NBA center, but I think I qualify as a bigger guy. This rig is probably perfectly situated for someone who's 5 foot 10 inches or so. Let's talk about pedals. When I sat in it with the equipment installed, the wheel was too close and the pedals were too far. I was needing to recline the seat to give my arms some room, but having to extend my legs 100% to get the throttle down on my Club Sport V2 pedals. The rig does not provide an angle adjustment for the pedals like it does for the wheel. That was a pretty big disappointment. So I was about to drill some new mounting holes or build some sort of triangular support when I realized the Club Sports have 2 sets of mounting holes. One just requires some minor disassembly of the pedals. I used the other holes and now the pedals are at a good distance. The shifter mount, I didn't like the position at all, really. To each his own, but it wasn't going to work for me. So I made some adjustments to the 80-20 aluminum frame already in place and left the shifter and button box attached there. I did end up using the mount though. I just hung it on the left side and it works perfectly for holding a small fan and a tasty beverage. MDF as a material. Okay, so this one's going to take a sec. On one side of the coin, the fact that this thing is made out of MDF is why it's so inexpensive, so I can't hate that. That said, I think the key drawbacks of this rig center around the material of choice. All but one of the cross braces split when the provided screw was sent home. I'm not sure if they were just not wide enough or what, but they split with minimal torque applied. I braced the splits with wood screws run perpendicular to the split, so I kept the pieces in play just with some modification. Where the 2 subframes meet, there's some flex when heavy braking is applied. And since I'm always a breath away from clobbering someone while braking into Canada Corner, I'm worried about long-term durability there. I was thinking about getting a metal bracket to go from side to side over the joint. When I recline the seat back, it hangs really far over the deck too. enough that I find myself worrying about this unsupported weight having long-term consequences. Finally, if you have a direct drive wheel, I don't think I'd recommend this chassis. There's enough flex with my T300 that I don't think it can handle those things. Hardware. None of the hardware to mount your seat, pedals, or wheel are provided. Know that going in and get the right stuff accordingly. So, verdict. Was this a good buy? If you want to keep your costs around $500, this is a totally viable option. If you're a little under 6 feet tall, I think it'd be a great ergonomic fit. For me to build something out of 80/20 is probably 3 times the price, so I feel okay about this thing. I don't know that I'll be using it 5 years from now, but it's a step up from my Playseat Challenge. Now my wheel, pedals, and shifter are all mounted in such a way that they're the same every time I sit down. I want to say thanks to Derek for making something so cool for the community, and I'm glad to have one. All that said, if you're okay spending more money, I think the better long-term investment is an 80/20 aluminum rig. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. It's not my normal thing, so if you have questions about the build, any comments, whatever, just throw them down in the comments below, and I'll look forward to answering them as much as I can. Thank you.